I'm here to rip apart your assumptions about money. I'm going to show you that behind the financial crisis and the environmental crisis lies a hidden crisis in our monetary system, the very way our money is created. And I'm also going to show you that there's this community of people growing around the world that are using the latest technologies to create new currencies that will serve us and not the banks. And I'm going to call for media, old and new, to tell these new stories of money. Now, although we use money every day, often many of us don't really know the first thing about it in terms of how it's created and how that affects us. So what I'd like to do is do a little thought experiment with you. I'd like you to imagine that you're living in a village way back in time, let's say 3,000 years ago. Some of you bake bread, some of you look after chickens, some of you fix clothes. And so you all swap stuff amongst yourselves. It's a barter economy. But then one day, a knight comes to your village, and he looks at what you're doing, and he says, well, why don't you use my tokens? It'll be so much easier for you. You can swap them. So you decide to give it a go, and he lends each of you 10 tokens. And so you start using these, and you find it's great. You no longer have to swap your bread for eggs. You don't have to remember who owes who what. You can just swap the tokens. So you find suddenly you have a lot more free time. It's great for you. So you ask the knight to keep the tokens, and he agrees on one condition, that at the end of the year, when he returns, he can see that you've got 11 tokens. Otherwise, you will forfeit your assets to him. Now, because they've become so useful to you, you agree and you'll try this out. So time goes by and everything's fine, but then you realize the knight is returning soon, so you start to ask more for your bread. You start to ask more to fix people's clothes. And you realize, actually, that your neighbors have done the same thing. So suddenly there's a lot less tokens circulating in your village. The knight returns, and not everyone has 11 tokens. It's impossible. And so some of you lose your homes, lose your farms. In this situation, might this technology of tokens meant that you changed the way you relate and what you value and how you even feel? Do you think in this situation you might come to see the tokens as the wealth and not yourself, your neighbors, your village, or your environment? Fast forward 3,000 years, and our money system today is quite like that. Just now it's on cocaine. Literally, if some reports are to be believed. Now, this is not to be joked about. It is so important to whatever you're working on. We have to really address these issues. I've worked for 16 years helping large companies, UN agencies, and charities team up to address global challenges like climate change, overfishing, forced labor, HIV/AIDS. And we've created some cool coalitions that are changing business practices worldwide. But some of us have come to realize that if we want to change business in really widespread and lasting ways, if we want to change the way business does business, we must now change the way money makes money. Now, unfortunately, there aren't many people funding work in this area, as I found out. So to work on it more, I had to outsource myself to India. So I ended up working with an NGO called Community Forge, and they create free open source software for communities to run their own currencies. And through working with them, I had my eyes open to this whole world of innovation in complementary currencies, where some of them using units of hours worked, some of them even looking at using kilowatt hours as the measurement, some pegged to a national currency. And I also realized that advances in social networks and mobile payment systems means we're on the verge of a revolution in the scale and uptake and use of such currencies. Soon you will be able to walk into your local store, ask for the bill in a local currency, and pay with your mobile phone through an SMS or near-field communication or the web. Just yesterday in Brixton in London, they launched just such a scheme. So I'll return to this issue of innovation in this field later, but I think one of the most important things I got from beginning to work on this is I realized I, like many people, have so many completely unfounded assumptions about what money is. Someone asked me the simplest of questions: where does money come from? Where does money come from? Now, I'm a professor of management, not economics, but I like to think I know things, and it's a very simple question, and I didn't have a clue. I offered the idea that, well, doesn't government create it? And then I found out, well, yes, 3% of all money is created by governments in the mint, so these are the coins and the notes we have. But the rest, in nearly all countries of the world, the rest is 97% is made by banks, private banks. It's electronic. And they create this with interest, of course. So when you go to a bank, did you think that the bank had the money to lend you when you borrow it? I did. But no, they create it out of nothing. And of course, as I say, they create it with interest. But they don't create the interest, so who creates the interest? It's created with another loan with more interest. So it means today there is more debt in the world than money. Just like with the knight and his tokens, we can't pay off the debts. There's just not enough money. Individually we might, but collectively, we're in debt forever. We're paying compound interest forever. Now this creates a lot of problems. But for time, I'll mention just two. The first is this system of money creation as debt with interest means that increasing economic inequality, differences between rich and poor, is a mathematical certainty. No wonder then that 2% of people in the world now control half, or more than half now, of the world's wealth. The second problem is environmental. Because we need more and more lending to catch up because of all the interest,